Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is MrHurriicane, and today on Madden 20, I'm going to show you 5 teams that I would recommend you think about when it's time to start your own franchise. This time of year, as the game is new, I always get questions about what teams would be good to rebuild or who would be the most fun franchise team. And that's a difficult question because there are so many teams that fit different criteria that I look for in franchise. And everybody likes a different kind of challenge when it comes to this mode. Some teams need a complete rebuild, some teams need you to find replacements for aging veterans. There are so many challenges, and I may be considering some teams in this video for the 2 series that I want to start here shortly. You can leave your thoughts on who I should use down below in the comments. But the first team I want to talk about today, my first recommendation for you to think about, is the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that I think is really great for franchise this year. I used them back on Madden 15 for a series, but that was back when Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly were a little bit younger, and now Cam is 30, Luke Kuechly is 28, so what I think this team brings to the table is a sense of urgency to win early. And more importantly, to get some wins before these players regress and are no longer the players that can lead you to a Super Bowl. The Panthers roster is good but not great, and you're in a very competitive NFC South division against the Saints, the Falcons, and who knows, the Buccaneers could finally get over that hump as well. With the Panthers, you do start out with 3 superstar X-Factor players, Luke Kuechly of course, and these linebackers in this game are really good. Christian McCaffrey, he's your young star to build around on offense. He does have a few abilities. And then, of course, Cam Newton. His scrambling is really fun in Madden 20, and he's a difference maker. But he'll be regressing every year in your franchise, and while he's a top 10 quarterback now, he won't always be. And you want to get wins before Cam retires or he's not the same quarterback anymore. It's always fun to have teams that need some rebuilding in franchise, and the Panthers have that. But to have a little sense of urgency in the beginning and not just worry about the upcoming draft right away, I think adds a nice element to it. If you take the Panthers, you get a good quarterback and a good running back to open, so a nice foundation on offense. They also have some receivers I want to talk about, and what I like about both DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel is they're really young, they have star dev, and their ratings are in a place to where you could take them in whatever direction you want. All their route running attributes are about average. So you could take Curtis Samuel and specialize in him being your deep threat, and you could take DJ Moore and have him be your underneath receiver, or do it however you want. These players have some untapped potential, and if you can get them to break out a little bit, they can get that superstar development. Defensively for Carolina, everything does revolve around middle linebacker Luke Kuechly, one of the top rated players in the game. But the Panthers now for a while have had a good front 7. And you get some good veteran talent to open with. There's Luke Kuechly, they picked up Gerald McCoy in free agency, Kawan Short's very good. And they have a really young pass rusher now they picked up in this last draft, Brian Burns from Florida State. He's really fast, 88 speed, 91 acceleration. You just got to develop his pass rush skill set a little bit. He's got the potential to become a superstar, and you'll find out his development after 500 snaps. The Panthers are one of these teams that you could compete with right away, but they're not the most dominant team, and you're going to have a tough schedule in the NFC South, so you never know what you're going to get with a team like this. Much of Carolina's core, especially on defense, relies on veterans, so you will need to do some replacing and drafting a defensive talent early on. But I think Carolina is one of the best teams to pick for a franchise this year. You can use the new superstar abilities, you have some fun players, but at the same time, they do need some work. So it's kind of the perfect team for franchise if that's what you're looking for. The second team I want to talk about today, from the NFC North, we have the Detroit Lions. Detroit also, like Carolina, is in a very tough division. The Bears, Vikings, and Packers are all teams that have gone to the postseason in recent years. The Packers haven't made it in a few years, but there's still Aaron Rodgers there, and they picked up a lot of defensive talent this season. And I do look at division opponents a lot when it comes to these franchises. But Detroit also has what I think to be a fun offense to open with, although you're probably going to be thinking about Matt Stafford's replacement, as he's an average at best quarterback in Madden, and he's been their quarterback now for a while. They do have some superstars on defense, one of the best run defenders in the entire game, Damon Harrison, and Darius Big Play Slay in the secondary. There's more star power right now on this Lions defense, but that might not always be the case. Now, Matt Stafford's only a 79 overall. I'd recommend looking for his replacement very early on. He's the number 19 ranked quarterback in the game. His accuracies are nothing special, and at 31 years old, he's not getting better. But in year one, you will have one of the most underrated receiver duos in the game with Kenny Golladay, who I think you could easily turn into a number 1 wide receiver. He's already the 31st best in the game, and he's a great downfield threat, along with Marvin Jones. Both of these guys can stretch the field and make the difficult plays. And you also get Kerryon Johnson in his second year, a very well-rounded jack-of-all-trades running back. Nothing here stands out in a major way, but he runs with power while having some moves and catching the football. He's the modern-day running back. They drafted TJ Hawkinson in the first round this year, and he'll have pretty high development. And Hawkinson is a good receiving tight end and also can block, so you have a foundation on offense for sure. You have some pretty good offenses in the NFC North to defend, and while you do have Darius Slay and Trey Flowers came over from New England, how about these linebackers and safeties? The defensive line is really good, and if you use a more updated roster, you'll also have Mike Daniels on this team. So they're making up for their lack of linebacker talent with a tremendous defensive line. You'll want to make things a little more complete, though, competing with these NFC North teams and then other teams that you'll have to inevitably meet in the postseason. I think both the Lions and Panthers offer a lot of year one fun, but at the same time, you've got to worry about how to fill these issues on the roster. There's some good talent on both sides of the football in Detroit. It's just, you got to beat the Bears, Packers, and Vikings. You got to be better than them, and they have been really good in recent years. So I think you have to find the new quarterback early in this series and try to make the most of this window for Detroit they have with this talent. Turn this team around. You got a couple years to do it. Now let's talk about a team in a very different situation. The Denver Broncos are a great team to pick for franchise. They did draft a new quarterback this year in Drew Lock, but his ratings are very low and he'll need a lot of development to even become average. That's one thing I'm glad they did with the rating scaling this year, is not so many players starting out and already being average or above average in the NFL. I like to need development there. But the Broncos are coming off a 6-10 season, and it might be a challenge to get 6 wins again with this team. I like what they start out with defense. Of course, Von Miller, future Hall of Famer. These edge rushers with these superstar abilities are extremely good in Madden 20. And then Chris Harris. He's on a 1-year deal, and he's a shutdown corner. And he's one of the few corners in the game that have the man-up ability, and when you can play man coverage and trust it, it's a game changer. But there's certainly a lot of work to do with this offense. They've tried to bring in some offensive linemen, so their situation's a little bit better than a lot of teams to open in franchise. But at quarterback, are you playing Joe Flacco at 74 overall? Or are you handing the offense over to Drew Lock, who is a 67 overall rookie who needs a ton of work? He's the number 44 ranked quarterback, so that makes him about an average backup. You have an above average running back situation at least. There was breakout rookie Phillip Lindsay, who was undrafted a year ago, but he's got tremendous speed and elusiveness and can break some tackles. There is also Rolls-Royce Freeman, your power back, and he and Lindsay are a great 1-2 punch. The playmakers, though, are interesting on this team. There's the aging Emmanuel Sanders, who's probably a great trade candidate for you. And then there are 2 receivers you can work on developing, but they're going to need more work than, say, the DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel duo. Deshaun Hamilton and Cortland Sutton were both drafted a year ago. They don't have dynamic speed and their route runnings are a little low, so they're going to need a fair amount of work to become a starting caliber duo. You do have a good rookie tight end Noah Fant from Iowa is 6'4" with 89 speed. Vertical threat tight ends have changed the game here in the NFL, and Noah Fant could turn into a great one with the right development. You'll have a lot to work on with the offense, while the defense has a foundation, although it's very veteran focused with Miller and Chris Harris. You should still get some really good years out of Von Miller as long as you keep him under contract. It'll take a while before regression turns those ratings into anything to worry about. And while this is certainly a rebuilding team, it's a rebuilding team that at least has a couple good starting corners on the outside. Of course, Chris Harris, as we've talked about. But there's also veteran Kareem Jackson. These players might not be long-term solutions for you, but they can help you out while you figure out the offense. And in case you're worried about Von Miller's age catching up to him, you have Bradley Chubb in his second year out of NC State. He has 83 finesse moves, 78 power, 85 block shed. He'll be able to do everything well, as long as you develop him early on. I've already talked about the Panthers and Lions division foes. Well, you gotta talk about the Broncos as well. You're facing Patrick Mahomes twice a year, and he's only in year number 3, so don't expect him to be going anywhere for quite some time. The Chargers are one of the more well-rounded teams in the NFL, and their defense against your offense is going to be a major mismatch. And then you have the Oakland Raiders. It might not be a great team right now, but they're adding a lot of talent, and they have so much draft capital. It might find some players that really cause some issues for you in a Denver Bronco franchise. And also, just a little bonus, in Denver, you get to play in the elements every now and then, and I think you have a great set of uniforms to use, whether it's their current or alternates. Broncos got a great uniform set up, a fun team to start out for franchise, a tough division road ahead, so they're a perfect team as well. Now we're going to go out to the AFC East and talk about the Buffalo Bills. This AFC East has been waiting for teams to break out and challenge the Patriots now for around 2 decades. The Dolphins, Bills, and Jets all have young quarterbacks, and you could pick any one of these teams to try rebuilding as you take down the New England Patriots. But the Bills are another team if you're looking for a challenge in building an offense. This team needs a lot of work there. First off, you only get one superstar player on this team, and that is Micah Hyde, who is a ball hawk, so that's a good superstar to have. And I think you could get Tre'Davious White there as well. You got to start somewhere with this offense. Josh Allen is, of course, the quarterback now in his 2nd season, and he'll need to develop a lot of those accuracy ratings to be your long-term quarterback. His short accuracy at 73 is among the lowest for starting quarterbacks, if not the lowest. But he has a very strong arm, he's mobile, and can pick up a lot of yards on the ground. Your starting running back, one of your 3 veterans you have is LaShawn McCoy, who will probably not be a solution on your team for very long. There's McCoy, Frank Gore, and TJ Yeldon. And then at wide receiver, they signed 30-year-old veteran Cole Beasley, who will be your best route runner. So he can do a lot of the work underneath and catch a lot of passes. But what can you get out of these other receivers? John Brown, I think, can be a good deep threat for you for at least a few seasons. Then there's Robert Foster, who also has deep threat abilities but needs development. And then there's Zay Jones. I think that a lot of people assumed he'd be a little bit better at this stage, but there's still time. He's only in his 3rd season. And one thing I've noticed doing like long-term franchise stuff in Madden 19 is as long as you get a player to produce, their development will go up and their whole career arc can change. On this defense, though, there's more to work with, and in comparison to these other teams I've shown you, there's more young talent to work with. Starting with Ed Oliver, who is raw here in his 1st year. I mean, his finesse move is 71, his power move is 77. He probably won't win you Rookie of the Year, but he might be able to break out with good development and be really good come year 2 or 3. Then there's Tre'Davious White, who's in just his 3rd season. I thought he'd be a superstar in this game, but if you can get his development up, he'll have a high enough overall to attain some abilities. And as you gain overall points with those superstar players, they'll unlock more abilities. Micah Hyde does have that superstar dev, and he's an 86 overall, so he gives you that one ability, maybe more if you can get him up to a 90. Tremaine Edmunds is a fun linebacker, and he's only 21 in his second season of play. Now, with his skill set, he can run and tackle, but you really need to boost up his coverage. I would do a lot of that early on while you can, so you can turn him into a good 3-down linebacker. One of the veterans that you'll be able to lean on, though, is pass rusher Jerry Hughes, who is now 31 years old, so he'll be regressing pretty rapidly, but in the meantime, 88 finesse move, 82 speed, he can get the job done and get you close to double-digit sacks. For now, at least, this division is not as competitive as the ones that I've talked about already, but with the Patriots at the top, it's still a challenge. Tom Brady in this game, first off, is incredible. The Patriots are a difficult team to defeat. And then you have other teams rebuilding, the Jets and Dolphins. The Jets made a lot of moves this offseason, getting players like C.J. Mosley and Le'Veon Bell, and also drafting Quinnen Williams in the draft. So they could be a team on the rise. You should have plenty of cap space with this team to make a move in free agency if you're able to, or maybe a trade. You could look at trading players like Jerry Hughes or LaShawn McCoy to get some extra draft capital early on. You could develop Josh Allen if you want, or say his accuracies are just too low and find a new quarterback. But I like the idea of developing this offense while you have 3 potential stars to build around at all levels of defense in Tre'Davious White, Tremaine Edmunds, and Ed Oliver. The final team I want to talk about today is the team that I just finished a rebuild with in Madden 19. I went nearly 2 decades with this team, but it's already from Madden 19 to Madden 20, this team is different. They drafted Kyler Murray at the top and traded away Josh Rosen. And now, who knows what's going to happen here in the Cliff Kingsbury era. But the Cardinals are a great team for franchise if you want to work on developing this offense. But also, you need some work on defense. This team is more of a full rebuild. You get just one superstar player in pass rusher Chandler Jones. No Patrick Peterson here. Here's the offense for Arizona. First off, a lot of work to do up front, but they drafted their quarterback this year at number 1 overall. Can you develop Kyler Murray into a franchise NFL quarterback? With this offensive line and the way pass rush is handled in Madden 20, you'll need this throw on the run, the break sack, and the speed Murray brings to the table. Running back David Johnson is one of my favorites in the league, but even the best running backs can struggle behind a bad offensive line. So you'll want to fix that first and foremost to get the most out of Murray and DJ. Larry Fitzgerald continues to play and continue his Hall of Fame legacy. I don't think he'll spend too much time in your franchise, probably retiring after the first year or 2. The Cardinals drafted my favorite wide receiver in this draft class, and it was Hakeem Butler. Now, Hakeem Butler's ratings aren't anything too spectacular to start out with, but he does have good catching traffic and spectacular catch, so there's some potential here if you can develop him and get some production. They also took Andy Isabella in the 3rd round, and he'll have one of the higher developments you'll have to unlock. He's got a ton of speed, 95 speed. He can go downfield, but that low release is concerning. So it would be up to you. How do you want to develop Isabella's skill set, as he will have a higher development? I think you should really focus on Christian Kirk in this offense, though. He's in his 2nd year. He comes in with star development. You'll have to work with this low release rating, but between Kirk, Butler, and Isabella, you got great receiver talent to work on developing alongside Murray. And you at least have a good right tackle, and I've watched so many great left ends take over games, so having someone like Marcus Gilbert at least gives you a chance. We'll talk about this defense a little bit, though. Patrick Peterson is now 29, starting to get up there in age, but these ratings are still great. Shocked that at 92 overall, he doesn't have a superstar ability of any kind. On this defense, you also have Chandler Jones, who does have superstar, and he'll be a solid pass rusher with the 85 power move. But I do not see this skill set as being one that'll go well with regression. His block shed is already low. His power move is just above average. So you only got a couple years of him being productive, really. But there's a young player in the secondary to work on developing, Buda Baker. He has very low zone coverage for safety, but he has decent man coverage, and you can play him in the slot if you want, but you'll definitely have to work on that coverage a bit. You have the veteran Terrell Suggs. Overall, while there is some talent on this defense, I don't think this defense is very good, and after year one, I think it takes a big step back. So if you want to draft some defensive talent and still have work to do on the offensive side, like, this is a team that you should think about. They got Jordan Hicks in the offseason. He's a solid linebacker. He can play nickel downs at least. He's an 80 overall. And then there's Byron Murphy, a good player to develop with a higher development to unlock. I like Byron Murphy quite a bit. Here's his skill set on day one. You can work on either coverage rating that you want. 88 speed is adequate, and 73 catching. Not bad. One thing to remember is that the playbooks have been updated in Madden 20, and the Cardinals playbook, should you decide to use it on offense, has a lot of unique stuff. They have a bunch of pistol formations, a ton of RPOs, a lot of spread concepts. So this is a really good team to develop while taking advantage of one of the improvements in this game. The RPOs, the screen game's better, spread offenses I think are a lot more fun. I think running an offense here with a bunch of RPOs and getting the ball out quick and actually having screens that are more useful than they've been in the past, that's at least something different than we're used to here in Madden. Of course, gotta talk about the division opponents as well. Seattle and Los Angeles are legitimate playoff contenders, and San Francisco's got a nice team. I wanted to include them in this video initially, but I felt that they had less rebuilding to do than other teams. Like, they're really talented on defense, and they got a lot of skill talent now they picked up on offense. So that's a team that you can develop for a while. I don't think you have to draft nearly as much as some of these teams, but there are so many good teams to consider for franchise, and that's why it's a tough question to answer. But I'm hoping that with this video, it helps answer that question for a lot of you, and now you have a team that you think you have a fun journey ahead with here in franchise mode. One thing that I just want you to remember when it comes to franchise mode, now that I've seen this going through a couple series of 10 plus years in Madden 18 and 19, even if these ratings are low and developments are low, there's the new scenario engine, so you can have breakout players get better development there. But even if you just have players with big stats and they're really productive, just because they're a 74 overall, it doesn't look like they can be a star, doesn't mean they can't. If you can produce with a player, they can all become really good. I've seen it happen a lot recently, and it's something I want to focus on a lot when I get back into franchise this year. But I am starting up a rebuild franchise on my second channel later this week, and I hope to get a traditional franchise of mine going here on the main channel shortly. I will say I do know one team I'll be using now, and I don't know which series it's going to be, but I still have one to figure out. So you can leave your feedback down below if you have any suggestions. But that's going to do it for me today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. These are really fun to put together. Leave your feedback down below. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again with more Madden 20 soon. Have a great day.